Welcome to Tutoring Tuesday, where we solve your high school level questions. If you would like to be featured on next week's Tutoring Tuesday, please submit your questions to questions@academicgurusinc.com. Today we'll be solving for a quadratic equation using the factoring method. Next session, we will be taking a look at how to solve this problem using the quadratic formula. So let's get started. The first thing whenever you approach a quadratic equation is to understand what is actually going on and what the question is looking for. So if we were to, this is a generic quadratic equation, which in your textbook would most likely look like ax squared plus bx plus c. So where minus 3 represents the a, b represents the 6, and c is represented by the 9 in this case. And we're trying to find a solution where x plus a times x plus b will give us the solution where on a graph, if we were to graph this generic hyperbola, it would look something like this. And what we would be looking for is the point at which the hyperbola crosses the x-axis. So in this case here, and in this case here. Now this hyperbola could be facing any which way, but I'm just giving you a basic example so you understand what it is we're looking for and what this equation actually represents. So the first thing that you have to take a look at is the coefficient in front of the x squared here. This is probably what gives most students difficulties, and the easiest way is just to simplify it by factoring it out. So that is what we will be doing here. So I'm going to change colors by rewriting this equation. So we had minus 3x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 0. So now we're factoring out the minus 3. That's the goal here. So minus 3x squared minus, so be very careful here, we're taking factoring out a negative number, therefore this has to be a negative number here as well. So minus 2x minus 3 equals 0. Okay, so if you're ever unsure and you have some time during your exam, you always want to go back and multiply that through. So if you take the minus 3 multiplied by the x squared, you do in fact get the minus 3x squared. Minus 3 times minus 2x does give you positive 6x. Minus 3 times minus 3, it gives you the 9. So always be sure. So now this makes things a little bit easier. If we concentrate only on the x squared minus 2x minus 3 and look at what would make this equation equal 0, that would make things easier for you. And the reason why we can focus only on this section is that what we are looking at here is the minus 3, and it is multiplying what is in the bracket here has to equal 0. And as you already know, anything that you multiply by 0 equals 0. So we can concentrate on only this portion right here. So let's rewrite that. So we've got x squared minus 2x minus 3. Okay, so in order to solve for this, what you want is you want to take the coefficient in front of the x squared, in this case it's 1, and you want to take the coefficient, the constant here, number 3, minus 3. When you multiply these two numbers, it should equal minus 3. And when you multiply the two numbers, when you add the two numbers, they should equal minus 2x. So let's write that down so it's a little bit clearer. So you want x plus or minus some number a multiplied by x plus or minus some number b, so that when you multiply a times b, it should equal negative 3. And when you add a plus b, it should equal negative 2. And this is true if we go back to our equation when we say -3 times 1, for example, that equals -3. And if we take those same numbers, -3 plus 1 equals -2. So therefore, if we go back to our generic question here, we can say that x minus 3 times x plus 1 gives us the solution for when this is equal to 0. This is just going back to the original equation here. And this is true because if we bring this over here, x minus 3 equals 0 is true when x equals 3, and x plus 1 equals 0 when x equals -1. Therefore, on our graph, if on our generic hyperbola, the point would be at -1, if this were to be -1, and at point 3.